right? But he's in the house, got that one. Our next performer, he's lived many lives. He grew up in Cape Cod. He was a sea lion trainer. What? And he killed it this past May as a TEDx Portsmouth speaker. He was great. Please welcome John Monaghan.
Hey. Hey. How are you? All right. Let's see, I didn't memorize this like the TED Talk, so. All right, so my wife, she got a new iPhone the other day for Android people, and she whispers around it, and I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I don't want to wake Siri up. She has no idea what I'm going to say up here, but that's okay because we have a safe word, and if you hear someone yell, keep going, you'll know I've gone too far. So if you're not familiar with safe words, they're words that couples will decide upon before sex or stand-up comedy routines to let the other person know to dial it back a little bit. And you probably are familiar with the original safe word. It's no. No means no. It still means no. Right? Yeah, that's right. All right. So I'd encourage you to get a safe word in your daily life. They can come in handy. Let's say you're at a yard sale, right? And you want to buy something, but your partner doesn't want you to buy that. Like, let's say a giant ceramic gorilla head. Just picking out hypothetically. And so she says, keep going. So you just go find another item that's grosser, like some used tidy-whities or something, and then you end up with your ceramic gorilla head. So that might be too specific, but I got my ceramic gorilla head. All right, so I used to be a police chief. So when I started my career, it was 1999. Take your time. And we were heroes back then. Man, I got like a shitload of stuff to get through here. So,
keep going.
Here, thank you, I will. So there was no Google. See what you did there. There was no Google. Phones had cords. Y2K, if anybody remembers that. I worked midnight shift, turned out to be nothing. There were DARE officers, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. What's that? Okay. So, all right, you just keep that between yourselves. So, yeah, and they had us arresting drunk drivers like it was 1999. So anyways, my wife was telling me the other day that 85% of us come from dysfunctional households. Did you know that? Some are more dis and some are more fun. But 85%, which means that only 15% of families are normal. So I got to thinking, if 15% are normal and 85% are not, like, aren't we the majority? Like, aren't we the normal ones? And so I got to thinking, like, how are we supposed to know what it means to be normal if only 15% of people know what that is? So, and I was guessing, like, they probably know how to balance checkbooks. They have 401ks and college funds. They probably have sex in the missionary position. And if you're wondering who the normal ones are, they're the ones that just said there's another position besides. Should I keep going? So whatever the abnormal thoughts the rest of us are having. Okay, so the other day I was like, I gotta write this thing, what am I gonna do? So I decided to sign up for a martial art class. I'm 51 years old. I'm a 20-year police veteran. My adrenal glands are spent. They're wrung out like a wet paper towel. But I do have a very old black belt from a long time ago. So I get an email back, and they're like, do you want to have more confidence than you've had in your entire life? And I was like, fuck yeah, I do. Like, who doesn't want more confidence than they've had in their entire life? So I go to the gym, and they're mixed martial artists. They're like cage fighters, you know, these guys that they beat the shit out of each other for money and fame. It's kind of like gladiators who used to beat each other to death, but now they just do it for fun. So, but back in 1999 when I was at the police academy, we had what was called defensive tactics, or DTs. And what I realized, because I had already had a black belt at that point, was that some of the people teaching were not really subject matter experts, but rather people with some deep insecurities. And they would say things like, when somebody comes up to you, you hit them with a palm heel strike in the chest and yell, "Get back." And if you know anything about martial arts, and I do because I know the difference between a judo chop and a ninja chop, that's how you break your wrist. Fortunately, with mixed martial arts, defensive tactics has evolved, but the instructors haven't. So let me paint you a picture. These guys are known to spend exorbitant amounts of money on guns and gun accessories. They wear something that indicates they're in law enforcement and then act surprised when you ask them. They have lifted vehicles with thin blue line stickers, and they pronounce vehicle with an extra syllable. The shortness and accuracy of their flat top is directly proportionate to whether you're getting a speeding ticket or a warning. So suddenly DT training became warrior training. And I was like, I'm down with that. Who doesn't want to be a warrior, right? But these guys, this should be super cute. And so class with sample videos, I was watching other people do my job. There were catchphrases like, "Stay frosty, keep your head on a swivel." And then there were tactical, like operator hand demos, like with a deep athletic stance. Okay, so, yeah. So did you ever notice that when people tell a story, they're either the victim or the hero in that story? Like, you're never the asshole. You know? When was the time that you were like, "Let me tell you about the time I was a total douchebag"? Right? This phenomenon is known as cognitive dissonance. Yeah. So many of you have seen some of the police brutality things, and it would be unfair to paint officers with a broad brush. There's some really great officers doing some very hard work out there every day. But we would also be negligent to think that the profession could use a bit of an overhaul. So I had the audacity as somebody wearing a badge to think that maybe I should do something about it. So I got involved with police reform. Yeah. So the first thing I had to do, though, was educate myself about things I didn't know about. Whereas my stepfather would say, "Realize how much of an idiot you are in order to be a little less dumb." So, but that's not what I'm here to talk to you about. I'm here to talk to you about a seldom and ignored topic, and that's the oppression of the middle-aged white man. Yeah, sure. So I can see my face on cereal boxes, TV ads, and boardrooms across America. But it sucks being the guy that everybody's mad at. And so the temptation is to make yourself the hero or the victim of that story. Rewrite the narrative so that maybe you don't feel so bad. But no matter how much you rewrite that, you're still going to be the asshole in somebody's story. Thank you, Stephanie. So I heard this guy say once, I didn't make good choices, I had good choices. And I was like, I think he's onto something. So the other day, my mom ended up in the hospital. My stepfather, he's 90 and he has Alzheimer's. And so I had to go babysit this guy. Now he did a lot of stepping, not a lot of fathering growing up, So he holds a super high place on my resentment list. So I decided to call my friend George, because George he's pretty wise. And he said, "John, you should practice love and tolerance." And I was like, "George, I'm not made of love and tolerance." And then he said, "Well, could you do it for your mom?" And I was like, "Well, she does put the fun in dysfunctional." And then he said, "Would your mom do it for you?" And I said, "Yes, she would. She would without question." So I found myself watching what turned out to be a pretty helpless old man, and he was pretty sweet, telling stories about his childhood. And about 3 days later, I was in the hospital parking lot. I was waiting for my stepsister to come relieve me. And I realized this is like a child custody exchange a little bit, because he's like super confused about what's happening. Neither of us want to be there, and there's a diaper bag involved. It's pretty dark, right? Yeah. Thanks for laughing. Should I keep going? Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So here's the thing that I learned. It's one thing to advocate for someone or something, and it's another thing to have to defend against it, right? So like he's defending against Alzheimer's, and he needed me to advocate for him. So, and sometimes you can see what you're defending against, sometimes you can't. So like if you're a black, brown, or Asian person, you're defending against racism. If you're a woman, you're defending yourself, your daughters and sisters against sexism. If you're a person with a disability, you're defending against ableism. If you're a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, you're defending against as many isms as there are letters in your acronym. And so, if you find yourself a person who doesn't have to defend, like me, you have a few choices. You could do nothing. Sorry. You could be an ally or you could be an advocate. But defenders don't have that choice. So I got to thinking about those women from Mothers Against Drunk Driving, parents who jump over barricades to save their kids at school shootings, about how my mother would do for me without question what I struggled to do for her. And what I realized is that we don't need more warrior training. What we need is more mom training. Yeah. So. Because when it gets real, moms get shit done. Because they do things with a love for something greater than themselves, right? So, and I realize this is why moms aren't on the front lines of battlefields, because after about 30 seconds, and I may be grossly exaggerating how long this would take, two heads would pop up out of foxholes, and you'd hear, "This is total bullshit," and then you would hear, "I got you, sis." So, yeah, thanks. The world's problems should and would be solved by day drinkers snacking off charcuterie boards. So, there's heroes that walk amongst us. There could be one sitting next to you right now. You see, when you're a defender, you learn how to solve problems without causing problems for other people. Those are called solutions. What I like about martial arts is it pushes you and it stretches you, it makes you uncomfortable, but it grows you. You may in fact have more confidence than you've ever had in your entire life. But if you don't do anything with it, with the courage of a defender, or with a love of something greater than yourself, like a mom, then you're just a man who's standing in a cage, locked in a cage that someone else built. So if this seems kind of fucked up to you, and I assume it does, because I wrote it. It's a little bit like a Zen koan. You know, those are the Buddhist riddles that mess with your head, and then like months or years later, you're like, I get it. And I kind of imagine myself like a Buddhist monk, but not just any Buddhist monk. Like if the Buddhist monk was married with kids, I would be that Buddhist monk. And I'm sitting on my meditation now. You can breathe with me if you want. And I just take a nice deep breath in and out. And I hear, "Honey," the prayer wheel squeaking. And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. You said you'd get to it last week." And so I get up off my meditation mat and I walk out because I have to find the yak butter to grease this thing up with. And I snag my prayer beads on the door handle and they go all over the floor. And I hear, "Honey, are those your prayer beads on the floor? Because I just swept." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I'm trying to find the yak butter so I could go grease up the prayer wheel." And as I walk across the living room floor, I step on a Lego, but not any Lego. It's like a Buddhist Lego, like shaped like a pagoda with a point, and it just crams my fucking foot in. Like they take Buddha's name in vain, but instead of going to hell or eternal damnation, I just get reincarnated as like a frog or a Supreme Court justice or something. Thank you. So, and as I walk out into my Zen garden, I can kind of see like a prayer flag wrapped around a tree branch, but I'll get to that later. And I can just hear that prayer wheel just get squeaking away, and I see that there's just Tonka trucks that have just destroyed, like I just fucking raked this thing out, the Zen circles are all, what the fuck? And I realize that I'm just a man in a cage, but it's a cage that I built. pretty good, right? So, so I was gonna end with Wu-Tang Clan Ain't Nothing to Fuck With, which is it's a 90s hip hop band, but I figured like 5 people would get the reference. So I heard this quote this morning by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's pretty good. And it said, "I lost my smile, but don't worry, the dandelions have it." And I thought that was pretty pleasant. And so in that metaphor, because it's 2 like Zen koan things, right? Like you're the dandelions, right? Like you all hold each other's smiles, and so we're stronger together. That's what I want you to take from this. And Wu-Tang Clan Ain't Nothing to Fuck With.